Hey guys, welcome to MMA Breakdown with Adam Myers. We're going to go over next week's UFC 304 card. This is the UFC 304 preview show. We're going to go right into the top of the bill. Now, the strange thing about this card is that it's happening in the middle of the night for the guys in England, where the actual card takes place in Manchester. I expect the fans to be well and truly wasted by the time the actual main card starts. It's very tough to fight at 1 a.m., 2 a.m., but I'm sure the two champs, the headline Leon Edwards versus Bilal Muhammad and Tom Aspinall versus Curtis Blades, I'm sure they'll be able to handle it well and truly in their training. Now, let's start with Arnold Allen, Giga Shikazi. Giga kick, the left kick from hell. Giga is an amazing striker, so is Arnold Allen. Arnold coming off a tough loss from Matt Holloway a little bit ago. Giga's been in and out for a little bit. Also, I think coming off a loss. He's coming off a loss. Giga's coming off a loss, I believe. Arnold Allen and Giga is one of those fights where someone's going to get propelled back into that 2 fights away from a title shot situation. They're going to be, 7-6, looking at top 5 opponents, and the other one's going to get pushed back and have to accept someone from outside of the top 15 just to stay relevant in the division at the upper echelon of featherweight, which is so competitive. You've got Ilya, Ortega, Volk, obviously, Diego Lopez, Dan Ige just jumped in and made a name for himself as well at 303, 4 hours notice. So a lot going on in that featherweight division, and Arnold Allen and Giga the winner will put themselves in a really good position to get a title shot in about 2 fights. This isn't an eliminator by any sense of the word, but they are going to be close after this fight. We're going to move on to Manel Cape, the flyweight troll. I really don't like Manel that much, but that probably doesn't matter to him. I don't like his antics. And Muhammad Makayev. I've been following Makayev since his IMAF days. I'm a former IMAF competitor myself. I won a continental IMAF championship myself in the cage. Muhammad Makayev is the most decorated amateur MMA fighter of all time. People don't know that. He went to pro and had an immediate impact at flyweight. So many fights already. When you go through that amateur system and Olympic sport style system, you have hundreds of fights before you get to, what we consider professional ranks. Muhammad Makayev is one of those guys. So many fights, so much experience, undefeated as a pro, only lost maybe only lost once or twice as an amateur as well. And I'm talking about 20, 30 fights. There's a lot of amateur fights. This is not someone with only 10 fights. And those those levels are super high. It's not like it was 15 years ago. The amateur level now in MMA is very, very high. So Muhammad Makayev coming from that system and having now the professional experience on top of his UFC experience should get the win over Manel Cape, who's a game, savage guy, amazing striking, vicious dude at flyweight. But I don't think Manel has the experience to deal with someone as Muhammad Makayev, as well as his wrestling. Muhammad Makayev, a former English national wrestling team competitor. Not common, not common in the UK to have someone like Makayev at that level of wrestling, and especially that level of IMAF experience, the International Mixed Martial Arts Federation experience as an amateur. So my pick for that one is Muhammad Makayev. We're going to move on. The next fight, we got Paddy Pimblett, Bobby Green. Bobby's just changed his name to King. So I should be saying King Green versus Paddy Pimblett. This is just an entertainer. It has no implication on the division, really. Paddy's an amazing, funny guy. Bobby, great guy. Looks like they're going to have a mad fight, a madness in there. I don't think anything happens after this fight for either of them. It's just really an absolute showstopper. This is one for the fans. Having it really high up in the card is representative of Paddy's popularity in the UK, where he's from. Scousers don't get knocked out, as the man said to Michael Bisping just a few years ago. Now, I can't say King Green with a straight face, man. King Green, coming off a win on Jim Miller at 300, always puts on an entertaining fight. Took an Islam fight. We forget that Bobby Green fought Islam a couple of years ago, and yeah, he got starched, but the man's got cojones. He's not going to back down. I wonder if the violent way that Bobby fights will be too much for Paddy. I think Paddy has better grappling. Striking, though, Paddy has some fundamental flaws that come up for him. and one of them is the chin up as he swings. It's very difficult to get grapplers to stop doing that because they're used to keeping their heads nice and tucked, and then when they evolve into striking, it stays up sometimes. And Paddy's victim of that habit. I'm sure he's been working on it. The guy blows up in between fights, but he looks very disciplined. You know, he submitted, who did he submit recently? Takanori Gomi? Was it Takanori Gomi at Fight Pass, I think? Yeah. This is not a... No, that was Sean O'Malley. Sorry, that was someone else. Yeah, Paddy Pimblett is an amazing grappler nonetheless. High-level jiu-jitsu. Bobby's violent, though. The difference between this is Paddy's a brawler, an entertainer. He's a great fighter. Bobby is a savage. King Green, I can't say King Green. Bobby Green is a savage. It's a different environment there. This is someone who's really, really good on the ground and has some holes on the feet. Bobby has the answers to expose all those holes in a violent fashion. This might not be the homecoming for Paddy that he believes. My pick is Bobby Green in that one. Happy to be wrong as well. I think Paddy's great. I think he's very funny. I like watching him fight, but I don't think he's getting past Bobby Green. Now, let's get into the UFC Interim Heavyweight Championship fight. Tom Aspinall defends an interim belt against Curtis Blades. They've met once before. Tom had an unfortunate leg injury early in round one. The fight never really took place. I mean, it took place, but it didn't really happen. We don't have an outcome. We don't have a result for Tom Aspinall versus Curtis Blades. We don't have that satisfaction. We don't have that knowledge what's going to happen based on what happened last time. Very interesting. Co-main and main have the same, well, not the same, but similar issues. Tom Aspinall is an incredibly fast heavyweight, fast hands, amazing grappling and jiu-jitsu. You don't become world champion in the UFC without a well-rounded skill set anymore. This is not the 2010s where you can get through with a mad overhand right and some takedown defense or a double leg and a lay and pray. This doesn't work anymore. This level of UFC now, this level of MMA in the world now, every world champion is well-rounded. They are good everywhere. Otherwise, they would be exposed earlier. Tom Aspinall is an amazing example of a super athletic heavyweight. Think Stipe, but giant. He's much bigger than Stipe. Stipe was so fast at 107, 108 kilos, about 235, 240 pound range. Tom Aspinall is up there in the 250s and fast for a heavyweight. Curtis Blades is very big, athletic, amazing wrestling. We haven't seen Tom against someone who's so good at keeping him up against the fence and taking him down. Again, hard to put Tom there with that amazing hand speed and striking power. So what we're looking at this fight is a battle between not just striker grappler, but a battle between athletic styles. Curtis is a drainer. Curtis will drain you. He'll put you up against the fence, punches. Look what he did to Derek Lewis before Derek uppercutted him. Just drained his life. Sucked the life out of him. And that's what he'll be looking to do to Tom to slow him down. He can't let Tom run around the field picking shots, blitzing him with those hard shots. Tom's an amazing counter puncher, as we saw in the fight against Sergey Pavlovich. Now, Curtis Blades has to put him up against the fence, keep the pressure on without getting caught on the way in and without letting Tom go first, because he's not going to beat him to the punch on those counters. Even if Curtis is going to have an unusual level of timing to beat that speed, but Tom also has that unbelievable level of timing coupled with an unbelievable amount of speed for someone of that size in the heavyweight division. We haven't seen someone this fast. You think to guys like Brock Lesnar, who are just so athletic, so explosive, so fast, very hard to deal with. That's what Tom Aspinall brings as the UFC interim heavyweight champion. Now, we could go on for a very long time about Tom versus John Jones. People want Tom versus Alex Pereira. I think after this fight, we know who the interim champion is again. John's been charged with battery assault. We don't know what to say at this point about John Jones. Besides being the greatest athlete of all time, the greatest combat sports athlete of all time, hand-to-hand combat, anyone in human history loses to John Jones. Think about that statement. Anyone in human history loses to John Jones in hand-to-hand combat in any rule set. They're dead. Sorry, I shouldn't say any rule set. It's not like it's boxing only. He would destroy every boxer in the world. But if it's a fight, Jon Jones is winning. Now, we might not see Jon Jones this year again. So how long is Tom, if he defends, which I think he will, before we get off track, my pick is Tom Aspinall to defeat Curtis Blades at UFC 304, July 27, Manchester, England. I picked Tom Aspinall to defend the interim heavyweight championship, but when do we see Jon Jones? When is he back? If he's not coming back soon, then when is it? Who have we got to look forward for Tom to fight after? Is it Alex? He has to fight Magomed Ankalaev. He's got Ankalaev left. He's got 2 title defenses. 3 championship wins in light heavyweight, 2 of them against the same person. He hasn't cleaned out the light heavyweight division, although I would love the Triple Crown status. I would love Alex Pereira to jump up to heavyweight. That's an amazing fight. We're all going to watch it. It's going to be amazing. But the guy hasn't cleared out his division. He hasn't cleared out his division, so there's no reason to pontificate about how Alex would do against Tom when Tom's fighting Curtis Blades next week. He still has to get past a stiff test in Curtis Blades. I think he will. As I said earlier, my pick is Tom Aspinall, but I don't think it's right to say, what's our dream matchup, Tom versus Alex Pereira, when one of them's the interim champion and one of them's the champion in the division that he hasn't yet cleared out. These aren't things that we need to worry about yet. We'll have more answers next weekend. Alex wants to fight every 2 weeks, it looks like. He might be fighting Ankalaev in 2-3 months. The guy was here in Australia. Actually, he was just near my gym in Thornbury, here in Melbourne, Victoria, Australia, getting a haircut when he got the call to go fight Yuri Prohaska. One of my students saw him, was with him at the barbershop getting a haircut when he was called to fight Yuri Prohaska at UFC 303 to save the day when Connor and Chandler fell off. Now, back to 304 business. Tom Aspinall defeating Curtis Blades is a huge win. It's a huge win. But is he the champion? Is Tom Aspinall the champion? If he beats Curtis Blades and Jon Jones doesn't fight against Stipe, he isn't holding up anything, he says. Stipe says he's not holding up anything. He says he's wanting the UFC to move on. If that's not the fight to make anymore, him versus Jon, he doesn't seem to care. Stipe hasn't fought since 2021. Stipe hasn't fought since 2021. He hasn't... What are we talking about? It's 2022 maybe? Early 2022 when he lost to Francis? He hasn't won, I think, since 2021. That's a long time. That's a long time. So do you want Stipe versus Tom? No one really... I don't care about Tom versus Stipe. I think Tom's going to win on age alone. I don't think... Tom might not have been in the UFC at that point. Tom might not have been in the UFC the last time Stipe fought, who's the consensus greatest heavyweight of all time by title defenses alone. Now, let me ask you something else. Does Tom's heavyweight title defense count as a title defense towards that argumentative record against Stipe eventually? Tom's a young guy. He could get further, more title defenses. Let's say he beats Curtis. Let's say he beats Jones. He fights Tuivasa or Cyril Gane or someone after that, and he gets another title defense. Is he the greatest heavyweight of all time, while Stipe and Jon are still active UFC fighters, active on the roster, but he's never going to fight them? This is not the passing of the guard we saw with Rashad Evans and Chuck Liddell. This is not the passing of the guard when you see guys like, well, maybe not passing the guard so much when Dustin beat Benoit Saint-Denis a few months ago. But this is not a passing of the guard moment, because Curtis and Tom are the active at the top right now. They're at the top. Boom. 2 big heavyweights, big skilled guys at the top. But that doesn't take away from Stipe and Jon, or does it? Does Stipe and Jon have to be for the belt, is the question I'm posing. Does Stipe and Jon have to be for the UFC heavyweight championship of the world? Does it have to be undisputed? While Tom is disputing it and challenging top-ranked heavyweights defending the belt. These are all larger questions that we need to pose to ourselves after UFC 304, when Tom and Curtis fight for the interim UFC heavyweight championship of the world. Let's get to the main event. Leon Edwards versus Bilal Muhammad. Whoa. We've been waiting a while for this. Bilal's been campaigning hard for months. Amazing wins since the no contest against Leon. Leon, moment of the decade. It's not the cloth from which he is cut. Boom, boom, boom. Head kicks Kamaru Usman and takes the belts. Leon Edwards is the UFC welterweight champion of the world, defends the belt against Kamaru Usman, who you could argue is up there with GSP as the greatest welterweight of all time. Now let me ask you, is Leon Edwards the greatest welterweight of all time if he beats Bilal Muhammad? He's already defeated Kamaru twice. He can't fight George. George is well and truly gone. Guys commentating Crowder Combat. Leon Edwards, where does Leon Edwards sit in the greatest welterweights of all time with 2 victories? Not 1, but 2 victories against what many believe is the second greatest welterweight of all time, Kamaru Usman. Dana says Kamaru Usman is the greatest welterweight of all time. He says he's the greatest welterweight of all time, and Leon beat him twice. Leon beat him twice in his prime. And the only other person to challenge Kamaru is Colby Covington, and Leon beat him next. Now, by virtue of title defenses alone, Leon is not near the point where we say Leon is the greatest welterweight of all time, but he is well and truly on the way. He is well and truly on the way to be the greatest welterweight of all time. Imagine that. No double legs from the greatest welterweight of all time. We don't know these things 15 years in, 25 years in, 30 years into the UFC. Where all the greatest welterweights have been amazing wrestlers. George, even without that college wrestling background, was an amazing wrestler. Wow, what an amazing wrestler. Went out on top with the middleweight belt, a second belt. Does Leon need a second belt? How does Leon do against guys like Israel? Tough. Tough. Israel's not Michael Bisping. No disrespect to Bisping, but it's different. The challenge, though, at hand, after the no contest eye poke fight a couple years ago at the Apex during COVID, Leon has a long delay, finally gets a fight against Bilal Muhammad, 2 guys on the prime. Let's say Leon and Bilal at that time, they're where Arnold Allen and Giga Chikadze are right now. Near the top, but not the top. Not the top. Kamaru was fighting Gilbert Burns at that time. He was fighting Colby twice at that time. He was about to take on Masvidal twice in that time. But Leon and Bilal go to a no contest after an accidental eye poke. And if you've heard Bilal talk about it, which I'm sure you have, Bilal, severe eye injury. Now he's come back and beaten Gilbert, beaten Vicente Luque. Now who's going to go? I think Leon outstrikes Bilal. I think he finishes Bilal in the 4th round. I think Bilal's grappling is going to be incredible. I think the pressure is going to be incredible from Bilal. He's going to try and get in Leon's face. And I don't think he's expecting Leon to be able to deal with it. And I hope for Bilal's sake he's not basing that assumption on what happened in the last fight 4 years ago, because that isn't the Leon that's beaten Kamaru twice and Colby Covington. Leon has wiped the 2 best welterweights of the last 6 years, and he's about to wipe another one. I really believe that Leon finishes Bilal Muhammad next week. My pick is Bilal Muhammad loses by a 4th round stoppage, either TKO. It could even be submission. I don't think it would be submission. It'd be crazy to bet on submission. I'm not a betting man, but you'd be crazy to bet on submission. I think Leon Edwards beats Bilal Muhammad next week. And where does he go from there? It looks like Leon would be fighting Islam. Islam might come up. Second title shot. Let's put it that way. What if Leon beats Islam? What if Leon beats Bilal and then beats Islam? Are we still talking about George? Are we still talking about Kamaru in the same way? Islam's being considered one of the greatest fighters to ever do it. And he's beaten Dustin Poirier, near the end of his career, but Dustin Poirier, and Volkanovski twice. A featherweight champion. Although amazing, a featherweight champion. So we talk about Leon the same way we talk about George, but we're all 2 fights away from this greatness, and that's those 2. The connective tissue between the co-main and the main event is that The main event finished last time with a no contest, and the co-main last time with a horrendous knee injury to Tom Aspinall. Now we've got answers next week at UFC 304. Who do you pick? Main card all the way through to the main event. Let me know in the comments below, guys. Please subscribe and like the channel. Share the video with your friends. Tell me I'm wrong in the comments. I'll argue with you. That is okay. I'll see you guys next time. This is MMA Breakdown with me, Adam Myers. Bye for now.